Hey guys, what's up? It's Dan here. Welcome to another DanQ review. Today we're going to talk about WWE 12, the latest game in the THQ wrestling game or WWE franchise, which kind of they dropped the whole SmackDown vs. Raw and they pretty much branched it and decided to join them together and just call it WWE and then the year of its release, obviously for 2012, right? This game I was really anticipating because I hadn't played a decent wrestling game in a while and I really wanted to try it out. But first, let's give a brief summary here. WWE 12 is available on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Nintendo Wii. It is obviously it's a wrestling game, and it is developed by Yuke's and published by THQ. THQ usually goes with a lot of the WWE games here, so it was published by THQ, but they do have a hand in developing it as well. But anyway, what I want to say about this, there's actually quite a few things. I have a lot of things to say about it in terms of topics, like how many things I have to say. First off, let's start off with graphics. When I first looked at the graphics, like the very first time, I was rather shocked. In this day and age, how can we have graphics that look like this? I think the graphics needed work, man. To be honest with you, they looked kind of old. I'd be impressed if this game came out like a few years ago, but now, I don't know. The graphics seemed a little outdated. That's my problem there. The graphics were outdated, and they look outdated. They don't look that top notch. Although, like I say, graphics don't necessarily make or break a game. Actually, they have no real part in making or breaking a game, unless, of course, the game sucks. Like, I've played games that have been just terrible, but they've been beautiful to look at, and it kind of makes up for it. But this game is mainly focused on gameplay, but I would like to put that out there that the graphics could use some work, for sure. How about the control scheme? This is kind of like a double-edged sword in a way, I like to say. The controls are simple. Like, honestly, there are very simple controls. Like, for example, you have different grapples. Like, let's say you're doing a grapple from the front. You can hit different combos in different areas depending on where you want to grapple them. Say you want to just do a front grapple. Like, you're facing the guy, you do the front. You just tap A or X or whatever system you're playing on. He'll do a regular grapple. And then you have 4 more choices. You can hold up and A, right and A, down, left and A. Each direction and A will be a different suplex or whatever move you have. And you can also do the same thing, and you can do, like, say if you want to do like from behind, you'd hit like down an A before you did grapple. You know what I mean? So instead of hitting A when he's normally hit down an A, he'll go behind him, and the same thing goes. So instead of in the old games, I noticed that there were a lot of how shall I say? I rarely used my from the behind the back grapples because you had to actually walk around the superstar to get to him. And that's something I liked. It was easy. You could face the guy and quickly go into reverse moves if you wanted to. So the controls were simple and they were easy to access. But at the same time, I would like to put this out there as well as a negative. The controls were kind of delayed at times. They weren't very responsive. Like, sometimes they'd work good. Some other times they would be unresponsive and delayed. And honest to goodness, that was make or break, especially when you're reversals. Reversals are like, it'll pop up on screen. You'll say hit right trigger to reverse this move. Like it'll appear. 9 times out of 10, it will not reverse the move when it shows. You pretty much have to do it right before it appears. So you have to kind of know the game. So when you first jump into the game, you're going to be getting destroyed in terms of reversals. You won't be able to do a single reversal, and it plays a key. In single player, I eventually became rather good at reversals, but it takes knowing the game and when the moves are executed, when to do the reversals before you take it. So at the same time, controls were a little delayed, and that made or broke your victory. If you could reverse a good move, you're about to get a finisher, you reverse the finisher, you could turn things around. And that was cool. Another thing I'd like to say negatively about the game, and this was a huge thing for me. I've played many wrestling games in the past. Some really good ones like WWF No Mercy. I'm sure everyone's played that. WrestleMania X8, which was only available on the GameCube. Those old games were so good. And, you know, then eventually I played the newer ones like Raw, WWE Raw, then SmackDown, you know, when they came out for the PlayStation and the Xbox. And then I played one of the first WWE games to release on the HD console, which was SmackDown vs. Raw 2007. Remains to this day one of my favorite all-time games in terms of wrestling. And they had that from... I played SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, 2008, and 2009. I never played 2010 or 2011, so you'll have to forgive me. I can't compare them. From what I'll get to that later, actually, forget that. But in those games, they had things called hotspots. And you could basically control your guy. Like, for example, you could do a special grapple, and it would just grab basically the top of his head, and you could take him wherever you wanted to, and there'd be hotspots. Like, say, for example, I did that control thing. I put him in the corner. I'd throw him in there, and then I'd do manually controlled punches or elbow strikes or whatever the case was, or maybe I could take him over to the ropes. I'd fling him up, throw his balls on the ropes, and bounce the ropes up and down with my control. I could take him over to the steel steps and control if I wanted to hit his face in, etc. And there was also a back area where you could throw him over the thing. There was a big speaker. You could climb the speaker, jump over the speaker, etc. There's a lot of things you could do in that area. That was a really cool aspect of the game. That does not exist in this game. There is absolutely zero hotspot. There's actually zero control of your character. So say I tried a few times to try and line up when I wanted to throw the guy or take the guy through the announce table. I would disassemble the table, and then I'd try and bring him over there. But there's no way of grabbing the guy and manually carrying him over. You had to throw him into it and keep trial and error until you got him centered, and then you could throw him into it. And then eventually you're just like, okay, that was stupid. Why would you make a new game and remove an old feature that people liked? That makes no sense to me. And you know, they do have outside, you know, you can go out on the ramp, you can go you can go just basically you have if you're facing north here, here's the ramp right here, comes down, the ring's here, the announce table on the bottom. That's all you can go. There are special things called like free brawl, which is basically like backroom brawls. They're apparent all over story mode, but honestly they don't do anything really special. There are no hotspots back there. I mean, there are sort of hotspots, but they're not unique. Like for example, I could throw a guy into a big desk where they have all the equipment or whatever, sound equipment or whatever that they store in there. You throw him into that, and then all you would do is just ram him into there, and it would have the same effect as ramming him into a wall or something. It would be all the same. So the only thing different was the fact that it was a new setting and there was no rules. Basically, there were no weapons. You couldn't pick up any weapons or anything like that in the back. It was just very generic, and I thought, what the hell is this? Was this just thrown in? It felt like I just don't know what was needed for that. I would have preferred if they left the hotspots and got rid of the backstage brawls. Although in a lot of the old ones, I remember like I said, in WWF No Mercy, you could throw a guy into the ramp inside. It would change settings right there. So you'd be like, oh, now you're in the hallway. Throw him into this room. Now you're in the locker room. Throw him in here. You're in the garage. So you can manually walk openly in there. They took all that out. And I don't understand when you make a new game why you would take a step back. You don't take one step forward, two step back. You take two steps forward, one step back, if anything at all. I prefer just two steps forward, no steps back at all. But I don't get why they removed the hotspots. That was one of my favorite aspects of the SmackDown vs. Raw wrestling games. And I felt like there was very, very little control over my character, which can make, like I said, make or break the game. I mean, you know, you want to win this match, but you can't get this guy into this area. So I thought that was kind of stupid. One thing I have to say about this game, though, it is very realistic. The control scheme and everything makes it so much more realistic. Like, instead of, I don't know, like, you can hide the HUD if you want and just go based on instinct, or you can keep the HUD on. Even when you have max HUD on, if you don't know what that means, it's heads-up display, basically like your status, your stamina bars, your finisher bars, that sort of thing. You can hide that or show it, in case you don't know what HUD means. Although you guys are gamers, you should know what it means. But anyways, that was really cool, the realism. There was a lot of it, and they had every single character you can think of. They had a lot of old school characters in it as well. The realism effect of it. They had current pay-per-views, WWE pay-per-views, different rings like that. They had real matches. They had that's a new topic. We'll get into that in a second. But it's a very realistic game, and I think that's what they were going for. They weren't going for an arcadey wrestling game. They were going for a wrestling simulator. I think that's why they probably didn't include all these little things. Because how many times do you see people like smack the living hell out of people, over and over and over again with these weapons and throw them into speakers and get electrocuted? That's kind of stuff in a pay-per-view, and rarely, you know what I mean? So I think that's what they were trying to do. But sometimes you don't always want that. You should be able to have the ability to do that and do the fun arcadey stuff where you just go crazy with everything. I mean, that's what I love to do in wrestling games. I don't know about you guys, but that's me. Now let's get into the main game as well. There's a lot to talk about, guys. I'm telling you. All right, first, this game, as a good thing, has a ton of create modes and customization. Like, you can do anything. You can create a wrestler. You can create a finishing move. You can create a ring. You can create an entrance. You can create a moveset. You can create a logo. You can create a story mode. There's a ton to create, you guys. Like, it's crazy. And the thing I love the most was, how when you announce, in the older games you had to choose a little nickname, like, I don't know, the Basher or the Hero or the Icon or something like that, something that's not even related to the name. This game allowed you to piece together your own ring announcement. So when my character came out, the guy said, introducing the from Canada, because they never ever had my city, but I'd be like, from Canada, the WWE champion, DanQ 8000. It would actually say it, because you would split up your name into different words. So they had a Dan, they had a letter Q, they had a number 8, and they had the word 1000. So all I did was select all 4, and we set it in sequence. And that was one of the coolest things I liked about the customization of it, which this game really shined in. So if you like customizing, you like creating stuff, you like create modes, you're going to love that for sure about this game. This game has a couple modes for single player. It's got story mode, which is the Road to WrestleMania, and it's got the WWE Universe. Now the Road to WrestleMania mode is basically events are set. You just have to do objectives, and there are 3 campaigns. You have one as the villains, one as the outsider, and one as the hero. And one plays as Sheamus, which is a villain in this case. One plays as the outsider, which is Triple H, and finally the hero, which is your creative wrestler, but they call him Jacob Cass. Each one is really good. Honestly, this story mode in this game is both long, detailed, entertaining, and satisfying. Each campaign I played, I had more fun than the last, like, honest to God. My favorite was the last one, because you were a creative wrestler, and you were like the rising star from NXT, and you're just, I won't spoil anything, but you basically just changed WWE, which is really, really cool. In terms of WWE Universe, that was more of a customized story mode, but they basically lay it out for you, you know what I mean? So you have different matches. Like in this mode, you actually play the matches for what they are, because in story mode you could be kicking the living shit out of a guy, and you'd win. Obviously you'd win the match, but then when you hit Y to proceed with the story, he'd reverse it, and all of a sudden you'd get interfered or something like that, just to fit the storyline of that particular single player story. This one you can change the match type, you can change the venue, you can create your own pay-per-view event, you can do it all. You can make it all. You can create your own matches, you can set yourself as whatever champion you want, you can compete in the Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, you can cash in your Money in the Bank if you choose. There's a lot to do in this. It's more of a free-flowing, just match here and there, whatever you want to do, kind of story mode with whatever character you want. You can play as all the characters in the bill, or you can do what I did, just use my custom superstar. That way it felt more like a story. But that was a good addition too. So the story modes of this game, or the single player modes, were really, really good, and they give you a lot of playtime. Because honest to God, you can do year after year after year if you really want to. Now, what else we got here? I think that pretty much covers single player and what you can do by yourself. Let's move on to the multiplayer. I played some multiplayer the other day. I gotta say, man, nothing has changed since the last multiplayer. Every single multiplayer I played in the SmackDown vs. Raw series, which is now the WWE series they call it, it's bad. It's not the fact that the gameplay itself is bad, in a way, but let me explain. The loading is so bad. I'm not even kidding. It took sometimes 3 minutes Like, for example, if you had a full room, the first game I had, the first part of my multiplayer segment is loading screens and trying to get into a game. It was ridiculous. I got kicked out. I got loading screen after loading screen after loading screen. People would get impatient. They'd leave. Loading screen, loading screen. You get into a game. Someone had to put entrances on. And what it does is, plays one entrance, wait 3 minutes. I'm not even kidding. It'd be like 3 minutes, play the next one. And if you're in a 6-man battle royal, each 6 people, so that's what? 18 minutes of wasted time on entrances when you could be playing. That was stupid. Like, not only that, but something, when you have that many people, this game is dependent on the host connection. And even though sometimes I'd see a guy with 5 bars, full bars, it would be ridiculously laggy, everything would be delayed, therefore making reversals ridiculously hard. And the host would be fine with the reversals, but if you were joining someone's game, it would be so tough to reverse. And that was very apparent in a lot of my modes. I mean, sometimes I did well because we had even connections, but then you'd get a guy with a bad connection, and you'd be choppy, he'd be kicking your ass, you would be able to reverse a thing, and you'd lose the match. Now, another thing I noticed, this thing was apparent in SmackDown vs. Raw 07 as well. I hated it. They had very unfair, cheap ways to win in this game, and I tried to avoid them, but sometimes you can't, and you're trying so hard to find a match, and you keep getting kicked out, and you get one particular match that obviously no one's going to join because they're not stupid. But I wanted you guys to see some footage, so I did it anyway. They have I joined 2 of these. One was a one-on tag, meaning one person in, and then 2 people in the ring, and then there'd be a guy you'd have to tag in and out. And the other one I do was a one-on-one with a manager. Basically, when that happens, that might as well be a 2-on-1 onslaught with you doing nothing. Because people, they can change the rules of the game, the match rules. So, for example, when I did this tag one, where you're supposed to tag him in, I'd be doing well. I'd start kicking this guy's ass. Buddy would come in, the ref can't do a thing because it's allowed, the ref would do nothing, he'd kick the shit out of me, I'm trying to reverse it. When I get a reverse in, his buddy comes in and saves him. You cannot win in those matches. And I thought the manager one would be better, because maybe, the manager would just provide distraction. No, it might as well be a 1-on-2 handicap tornado tag, because honest to God, the manager would come in, just taunt outside in the ring, use their finishing move, I'm down on the ground, this guy would beat me up some more, he'd go do more taunts, blah blah blah, I couldn't do a thing. And even when I did reversal, the guy was in there to mess me up. So, that was really bad. But the thing was, when I played a fair match where people didn't use cheap tactics and there was no lag, I was having fun. The multiplayer is entertaining. It's fun trying to, you're actually playing a challenging opponent or an evenly matched opponent, and this online play makes you better at the game because you're playing people who have skill level. These are human players. But the fact is, the multiplayer has too much lag. You're waiting way too long to get in the game. There's cheap tactics like crazy, and it's just not worth the multiplayer. And honestly, after that much time, you don't want to play anymore, and you're done with the multiplayer, and you're like, okay, that's done, I'm going back to single player. So that was a huge thing for me, because multiplayer is fun. Maybe if you're doing a private match with your friends, that's different, because you won't be douchebags to each other. Well, you might, but it'll all be in fun and games. These people, seriously devote their time to just completely taking you out. So that's that. And honest to God, that pretty much is WWE 12. There was a lot to it. I apologize if this is drained on, but basically I'm going to tell you what I honestly think about the game. What I saw. Actually saw some reviews before I even started my playthrough giving it 9s and 10. Well, I don't know if it gave it a 10, but 8.5s and 9s. Is this game a 9 or an 8.5? Hell no. Let me tell you something. This game, from what I hear from people, is very, very similar to its predecessor, which is SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. They use barely any changes. So when you factor in these, let's look at everything here. The fact that you do have great customization, you have a lot of creative modes, that sort of thing. You have really good story modes, whether it be Road to WrestleMania or WWE Universe mode, whether it be just the realism of the game, how realistic it is or whatever. And then on the other side of things, you got old, outdated looking graphics. You've got things that were taken out, like the hot spots, and just I don't know, little things that could have been worked out, and they took things out, reducing the game's worth. And then you go to multiplayer. where there's lag up the ass. You can't connect to anything. You load like crazy, loading forever. You meet with players who have cheap tactics and just ruin the multiplayer, when in actuality, when you get in a good game, it's really fun. That's the thing. It is actually really fun. But 9 times out of 10, like I said, you don't get one of those matches, and it's a rarity when you do. That's why I would often try to get a one-on-one, which are the most common match, probably for those reasons. So when you factor all that in there, I'm sure there's a few more that I missed, but there's a lot of details in this game. I'm giving WWE 12 a 7.25 out of 10. The single player is great. Honest to goodness, the single player is great. I almost forgot to say, the controls are simple, and yet they're delayed. That was a few of the things I forgot to mention, sorry. Single player is fun, the story mode's good, the WWE universe is fun. There's a lot to customize, a lot to do with that. You can do a ton of create modes, you can do a ton of customization. Those are some of my favorite aspects of a video game. But then you go to the multiplayer, where there's lag, and just ridiculous amounts of lag, you know. Because you can play this game by yourself for a long period of time. That's why it's getting a higher rating. If the single player sucked, this probably would get like a 5 or a 6. But honestly, the multiplayer is pretty much worthless at this stage unless they fix the loading screens again. Because I don't know if you guys knew this, but it took them, I think, over a week. What's today? Today is the 3rd. And it went down on day 1, November 22nd, and it just came up yesterday. Or the day before, I can't remember. That's a long time for servers to be down. And the fact that they're not even that good, what the hell were you doing for a week? Over a week, or whatever it was. I don't know, but it needs work. But 7.25 is what I'm giving it because it is enjoyable, but there are a lot of flaws. So everyone, thanks for watching this review for WWE 12. Let me know what you think. Hope it helped you. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you guys later.